Am I the a-hole for disowning my wife's daughter after she chose her mom's affair partner over me? I 35M met my now soon-to-be ex-wife 33F during uni 12 years ago. She already had kid when she was 19, but the dad left as soon as she started uni. We were dating for 3 months before I met her daughter Lisa. I remember seeing her family for the first time. I was nervous meeting her parents, but when I saw a little girl beside her mom I was confused. I asked her if that was her little sister or a cousin of hers, and her answer shocked me. When she told me that that's her daughter, I thought I misheard her or something. At first I wanted to dump her for hiding something so crucial from me, but she kept on begging for me to stay, and eventually I relented, and soon enough I started to fall in love with her daughter and wanted to be her father figure. Our bond grew stronger over the years, and in early 2019, before the pandemic hit, we got married. In late 2021 I adopted Lisa, and in early 2022 my wife gave birth to our son Mark. After my son was born, my wife made the choice to stay at home for the time being, and I was completely fine with that. Everything was going perfectly until a few months ago. I started noticing my wife increasingly spending time with her friends. At the time, I didn't say anything since, in my mind, being at home all day probably meant eating at her, and I didn't want to seem controlling. The thing that made me suspicious was her constant texting and going out of the room for calls. She never did that for anyone besides this one friend of hers. I asked her about it, but she gave me some vague answers about gossip. The moment that took it too far, though, was when I came home last week and saw her outside talking on the phone. This wasn't out of the ordinary. I remember seeing my son on the floor crying alone. I was pissed at my wife for just leaving him alone in the house, but when I went to pick him up and smelt the horrible stench coming from him, I was beyond furious. His diaper seemed like it hadn't been changed since that morning. I quickly changed his diaper and rushed outside with him in my arms. I was beyond pissed. I snatched her phone from her hand and bolted back inside. I locked my wife outside to have a talk with this friend of hers alone. I had my suspicions about who it really was, and when I heard a male voice calling out her name and asking who was there, I immediately knew what was going on. He ended the call as soon as he heard my voice. I then proceeded to lock the front door to make sure my wife couldn't enter the house at all, and proceeded to screenshot as much of their chat as I could and then sent them to myself before deleting them on her phone. About 5 minutes later, she was still banging on the glass door leading to the backyard. I reluctantly opened it and was met with a smack in the face. Remember, all of this is happening while I'm holding my toddler in my arms. As soon as she realized what she just did, she apologized profusely, started crying and tried to hug me. I pushed her away and told her to meet me at the dining table. I told my daughter to quickly take care of the baby so me and her mom could have a quick chat. That I just kept it simple. I told her this was her only chance to even have a sliver of chance of getting me back. If she fucked up this talk, it was over on the spot. No lies, nothing. She kept on trying to apologize and to say it wasn't that serious. I reminded her that she not only fucked me over, she could also have easily done serious harm to our son by leaving him alone in the house like that. I then simply asked who, for how long, and did they fuck? She replied with her ex-boss Daniel, 6 months, and she didn't answer the last one, so I kept on reminding her that this was her last chance. She then just simply nodded. I then asked her if they used protection. To this she started crying and started begging me for forgiveness. She said she would block him then and there, would never contact him again. I could fuck any woman I want from now on, yada yada. I guess Lisa heard the commotion and came downstairs. I told her to go back up, but she just walked to my wife and asked her if I knew about Daniel. Up to this point I was calm, but upon hearing this, I swear even I started tearing up. I asked Lisa if she knew all along, and she said yes. At this point I'm full on crying, and I asked her why she didn't tell me. She responded with, "Because unlike you, Daniel buys me the things I want without having to beg." I then asked her how she could possibly do this to her dad. She responded with the "you're not my real dad" crap. My wife screamed at her upon hearing what she said. At that point I couldn't bear any of this anymore. I just grabbed my son and got into the car. Me and my son are currently staying at my parents' house. I've basically been drinking myself to sleep every day. Thanks to the saint of a mother I have, my son is being taken care of right now. I'm beyond hurt. I've cancelled my ex-daughter's private school tuitions, all her extracurricular activities, and I've contacted a divorce lawyer. He's going to serve my wife this Friday. My wife and Lisa have been blowing up my phone non-stop with apologies. I simply responded with, "Get a lawyer and tell that ungrateful thing of yours to start calling Daniel her dad." I'm disowning her, and then I blocked my wife. I didn't respond to Lisa, I just simply blocked her. I guess my wifey told our friends what her and Lisa did, and now they have been texting me non-stop. They understand how I feel but believe I'm going too far by divorcing my wife without hearing her out. They also keep telling me that disowning Lisa is definitely going too far and she's only a kid and didn't understand what she was doing. I just can't get over the things she told me. I've worked my ass off to give my wife and daughter luxuries I could have only dreamed of as a kid, and this is how I get paid back. Lisa, 13 years old, is old enough to understand that hiding her mom's affair is bad and definitely purposely used those words to hurt me. But a part of me believes that there is still hope. A few family counseling sessions later and we can go back to living the life I once considered a fairy tale. That I am beyond destroyed by this whole situation. A part of me just wants to see them burn in hell, but the other part of me believes there is still hope. Am I really going too far? Is there still hope? Am I the a-hole for disowning my daughter and divorcing my wife? Before we move on to the next story, please like the video and subscribe for more stories. On to the next story. Finally told my ex-husband of 22 years of marriage what I thought of him and have apparently broken his heart. So I 52 F was married to 55 M for 22 years, together all up for 24 years. We finally separated on New Year's Day of 2024. It wasn't a New Year's resolution, it was just the day it happened. Over the years he bought so much shit we couldn't afford: a yacht, a jet ski, a scooter, a racing bike, surfboards and watches, so many watches. He also loved the grog, alcohol for the non-Aussies, and sports bet. I worked through the COVID times and after to pay the bills, to keep a roof over our heads. Worked every weekend to get the penalty rates. The only time I had more than a week off work was in 2023 when I had COVID. He used any excuse not to work: too wet, too hot, too much COVID, I think I have COVID. It was costing us a fortune for him to keep taking COVID tests. For years I have been paying all the bills, the rent, the electricity, the water, groceries. He paid for alcohol and cigarettes. I stopped doing his tax. He was living his life through his business account. $80 plus dollars a day on alcohol plus sports bet, gambling sites, and then cigarettes. I was already subsidizing his employees' wage up until 2022, I couldn't afford to pay his BAS as well. We borrowed a significant amount of money off my parents, he put it against his debts and then proceeded to run them back up. He got drunk most days from 10 a.m. There was always a reason he couldn't work. Late last November he asked me if I still loved him. I told him I still cared about him, but I couldn't do this anymore. I don't love you anymore. So he took 10 antidepressants. The ambos were more concerned about his level of intoxication. 2 of our kids held his head up while I was on the phone to 000. The next day they let him out. He's sorry, he didn't mean to kill himself. Yeah, that's great. So we had a few awkward weeks where no one was allowed to talk about what he did. Now fast forward to New Year's Eve, he turns up pissed to the nits at my place of work. Proceeds to get completely shit-faced and then at home accuses me of wanting to sleep with a 22 years old. He can't even stand up, he decides to sleep in front of the bedroom door to keep all predators out and calls me a cunt. The marriage ended that day, I was finally done. He went off to the mental health ward to get treatment for his alcohol addiction. But I was done. I didn't want to be called a cunt anymore. I wanted to be loved properly and respected. And I didn't believe him. So now the truth is in the punch. Yesterday he comes by to let me know he's in a relationship with the wife of the couple who took him in, so I sent him a message: "You fucking scum-sucking piece of shit. Go fuck yourself with your penis that rarely ever worked." I have apparently broken the heart he never had in the first place. That I finally got this off my chest and fell asleep. I am just exhausted. I know I'm not the arsehole he is, always has been. I'm just pissed off with myself for wasting so much time with a narcissistic fucktard, and I'm still allowing myself to be hurt by him. He actually asked me to take 25% responsibility for him deciding to take an overdose. What the actual fuck? The kids are being well looked after and supported. Thank you for all your comments.